Sorry guys, it seems I got cut off in the last video. So back to the truth table question for number 3. They wanted me to show that the contrapositive is always logically equivalent to the original. So I simply in column 2 filled in true, false, just to fill in the possible arrangements of truth values. I negated P all the way down, negated Q all the way down. I filled in P implies Q and not Q implies not P. This is pretty simple as long as you know that an implication is only false when true implies false. So that's the second column in each case. In every other case, it was true. When I'm done, you see that the two columns are exactly the same when it comes to their truth values, which shows they are logically equivalent. Question 4 was a simple interest question. It actually said simple interest rate in the question, so I used I equals CRN over 100. The tricky part here is that they're talking about money doubling. So if she starts with $2,000, for it to double, her interest would have to be $2,000. So now she started with $2,000, has $2,000 in interest, which would mean she now has $4,000. Now her money has doubled. So you just substitute everything you know in, and you end up with 25 years. The second part's really similar in that it uses doubling again, except this time it's a compound interest rate compounded quarterly. So I used my compound interest formula. I actually then changed to my future value formula because I knew that if Quan is starting with $3,000 and I want Quan's money to double, the future value of the money should be $6,000. So I found that most useful here. So the future value is $6,000. The starting amount is $3,000. I substituted in my rate. The K is 4 because it's being compounded quarterly. That's 4 times a year, raised to the 4n. Because my unknown is in my exponent, I did some simplification, and now I know I'm going to need to use log, so I have log 2 equals, bring down the exponent 4n, log of 1.00875. I divided by that value on both sides, and in the end, ended up with 19.9 years to 3 sig figs. Question 5, I think we did this one in class, but all it does is it gives you a formula, C equals NR plus S. Gives you two different situations, so I substituted in what I knew. Annis paid a total of $29.25, Raquel paid a total of $45.25, and they told us a number of weeks. I used the app button on my calculator where I can solve simultaneous equations by entering them in this little matrix. So I have 12, 1, 29.25, that's my first equation, 12, 1, 29.25. My second one was 21, 45.25. I get two values for x. Whichever unknown shows up first in your matrix is your x1. So my R was 200, my S was 525. Question 6, we have a question where it asks us for the equation of the axis of symmetry. You can just use x equals negative b over 2a. I just looked to the formula for my values for a and b, so I had 2 over 2, which ends up being x equals 1. It's an equation, so make sure you write x equals 1. Then write down the coordinates of point C. I know my axis of symmetry always goes through the vertex, so therefore my x value of the vertex has to be 1. So I simply substituted 1 into my original function to solve for y. Substituting in 1 then gives me -4 for y, so the coordinates is 1, -4. Here we have a trig graph. It looks like a lot going on here. I'll try to walk you through it as best I can. They ask for the range. The range, remember, is the y values. Is the y values from the very lowest point in your graph to the very highest. So the lowest y value is 1 down here, goes up to 3. You can write it one of these two ways. The amplitude is basically from your middle to your max. So if you look at this black line, that's the middle of my function. The max goes up to 3. So I have this distance here from 2 to 3, which is 1. The period then, the period is where you see the whole curve. So if you look in where I traced in red, you see the whole curve from 0 to 180. Another way to find it is by doing 360 divided by the frequency. So it's 360 divided by 2, which is 180. If the function changed to this, f of x equals 2 plus sine of 4x, well, that 4 is your frequency, whereas in the original function, the frequency was 2. So it would then be 360 divided by 4, making your period change from 180 degrees to 90 degrees. So now you're only seeing the whole curve, or now you're seeing the whole curve from 0 to 90 instead of from 0 to 180. They then ask for you to graph the line y equals 2. I've done that in black up above. And they want to know for which values of x make the original function and your line y equals 2 equivalent. So I'm just looking to see where they intersect. And they specifically asked for the x values. So you'll see I circled the x values where they intersected. Question 8 asks for a missing angle in the triangle. I found it most useful to use the law of sines. So a over sine A equals b over sine b. I started with a being 8, so the angle across from that is my unknown, so I left it sine A. I then used the 18 and the 110. So 18 is my b, so sine of 110. Simply cross multiply. You're going to use inverse sine here to find out that your missing angle is 24.7 degrees. Question 9. was a applied calculus question. First part asked you to find the derivative, so I simply just used the power rule. 100 minus 3 times negative 4/3 gives me negative 4x squared. Part B asked for the x value that will maximize the volume of the box. When I think maximize, I think maximum or minimum. In calculus questions, we take the derivative and set it equal to 0 when we're looking for the max or the min. So I did just that. I was able to factor, and the only value of x that made sense was a positive 5 since x is a length in my box. Hence, they're telling you take what you did in B, use it in C, calculate the maximum volume. So I know if x being 5 gives us the maximum volume, I'm substituting 5 into the original f of x, original function. So I end up with, I wrote it as a fraction 1,000 over 3 centimeters cubed.